Today's episode of The Outer Roll is brought to you by GoalieMonkey.com. Next time you need any goalie equipment, head to www.goaliemonkey.com. Plug in promo code PODCAST10, that's PODCAST, 10% off your entire order. Some exclusions may apply. GoalieMonkey.com, promo code PODCAST10 for any goalie equipment you might need, 10% off. A fun one today, a little bit off the cuff as you've come to expect from The Outer Roll. We have Bommarito from Vaughn Custom Sports back to talk about really anything and everything under the sun. So let's jump into it.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome back to The Outer Roll. As we mentioned in the ad read, Bommarito from Vaughn Custom Sports joins us really all over the place on this interview today. It's a fun one. If you haven't listened to our episode back in February with we talk about all the Vaughn stuff, all the V9 stuff, go into all of that. This one a lot more fun, a lot more laid back. We kind of talk about really a little bit of why it's more laid back and, kind of growing that personality. We talk about his podcast as well and us being the Godfather. But before we jump into that, I think to add some context, and we maybe have talked about this before, but Graisen, talk a little bit about kind of how you know Ev and sort of how the goalie community works, because in that entire interview, I kind of felt like a fly on the wall, like just adding stuff in, but it was like, an interview of two friends, and and I think people will hear that. But
so I met him basically through what he does now. Is he's more of a guy who talks to the goalies and sees what they want and gets them interested in wearing Vaughn gear. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I met him. I met him at a camp, and I just talked in Vaughn gear with him, and then we just became friends, and I saw him year after year, and then our relationship grew, and like you said, we hit each other with messages every once in a while, and we just joke around with each other, and so it's basically just like that. And for his side and kind of the goalie community, how it works is for his job, like I said before, is he's getting people interested and he's answering any questions per Vaughn. And so he talks about his issues when, his job is to go around all these junior and college teams to talk about gear and to have them try out the new stuff, because he's bringing the gear to them. They try it out for a practice. He talks about it. He sets up the orders. He gets their head molds for the helmets, and he gets everyone fitted. So when everything shut down, he couldn't do that. So he talks about how he had to do a lot of that over the internet and over FaceTime and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting to go into that kind of depth and kind of see how his side of the world works, different from ours. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really fantastic interview. And like we said last time, we interviewed him in February, where it was a lot of Vaughn talk, but I feel like this time is a lot more fun and getting to know Ev a little bit better for the audience.
So I think anyone that plays sports, knows this, and you have this bond with, the people that you go to work with, right? The people that you're putting in practice and all that stuff. But I think, at least from an outsider looking in, I think goalie, the kind of goalie fraternity is just so much more close knit, because it's such a obscure position, and there's one or two or three guys per team that do it. Do you think there's a tighter bond between the goalie community versus just people that play basketball together or whatever? I'm kind of curious, and I kind of sense it, and I think anyone that has listened to this podcast more than once or twice kind of can feel that too. But just to hear it kind of from the horse's mouth, what's that goalie community like, really?
I feel like everyone's toward the same goal a lot of the time, especially when you're on the same team with goalies. You're going towards the same goal. You're just trying to win games. Once you become friends with someone who's on your team, like I've mentioned before, I still talk to the other goalie who was on my juniors team every day, just because we had that tight bond where every day we were talking, every day we're trying to see how we can get better together and how we can win games no matter who's in net that night. So I feel like the goalie community, from that aspect, whether they're on your team or not, you're all working towards the same goal. You're all trying to get better. These goalie camps, you got 20 plus goalies out there, and you make a lot of connections with a lot of people. So, I've met a lot of people who have been on this podcast,
right.
if I think almost all, at various camps and stuff like that. So, it's all about just like meeting people and then talking about, whether they're a gear guy like Ev, where you're specifically talking about the gear and you're figuring out how can I get better with my gear? How can I get in something that works for me the most? Or you're talking to another goalie and how can I get better at this? You're really good at skating. I'm not. How do I get better at skating? So I feel like it's a lot of push and pull with everyone's trying to work towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm. So we'll jump right into it. This interview with Ev, as we mentioned, it's a little long in the tooth. So we're actually going to do kind of two different versions, similar to what we did with those of you that listened to the Warrior episode with Kirk Allen. We were fortunate enough to record this entire episode via Zoom. So we have Ev and ourselves on a webcam. That will be up on our YouTube page. Go over to GoalieMonkey on YouTube. This will be a little bit of the abridged version. Again, we talked for about an hour, so we'll kind of make it a little bit more time appropriate. But make sure if you want the full experience, the on-camera, everything live, head to the YouTube and check that out. But without further ado, from Vaughn Custom Sports, our friend Ev Bommarito. All right, we welcome back to the Outer Roll podcast, Ev Bommarito from Vaughn Custom Sports, our first recurring guest from the Outer Roll. Ev, good morning. How are we doing today?
Oh man, I'm buzzing right now. How are you guys?
We are buzzing as well. Excited to have you back on. I know we'll kind of jump right into some of the Vaughn stuff that's happened since the last time we had you on. So I'll let Graisen take the lead on that stuff.
Yeah, as we remember, right when we had you last time, the V9 stuff was about to come out. So I just wanted to hear how the launch for that went, and then going into a global pandemic, how you guys transitioned as a company.
Man, how much time we got? Because that's a lot of questions, and I got a lot of answers, man. No, dude, it's great to be back. Thank you guys for having me. But we started off, obviously, like you said, trying to release the V9. We were super excited. Then the pandemic hit, and when you can't travel to see people and we can only send out demos, that makes things a little bit more tough, right? One of our big push, like in the spring, early spring, like right when I seen you guys, we already start kind of talking to college kids in February, March, and then we need to get them locked in by April pretty much to get them set up for the next year. So when you can't go see those teams, it makes things a little bit more difficult. But in this day and age, you guys are in Dallas, Texas. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, and we're connected via Zoom, right? So that's how we figured things out. You started using different resources where it was just technology. We had to make the world closer through FaceTime on your phone, using Zoom, doing Skype, like anything you can do to just communicate with people. So with that being said, the V9, once we got it to people and they could see it, they could hold it, they could try it, it just took off. It ended up being one of our most exciting pads in the last couple of years next to the SLR, just because it's everything you kind of wanted in the velocity, right? Now we have the option to do a softer boot. You finally trim down the top gusset of the pad, so it has that thinned down modern profile. The outer roll's trimmed down a little bit, trying to get to that closer, being flatter look. Overall, the whole rotation and the way the pad flexed is just, it was in its prime, right? Now with that being said, once we got into everybody's hands, they loved it. The gloves were great. Blocker was good. Everything was received really well. And the chest is something that was actually very surprising to me, because we had the V7 and the VE8, which have some tweaks in between those two generations, but when you look at them from, maybe like we could say Jason's point of view, he'd say, oh, those look pretty similar. There's not many changes. But when you look at the V9, everything's different, right? Mm-hmm. So it was received so well. The way it wraps the body, guys feel so much more comfortable. They feel like they look so much bigger. I actually just recently had a guy who's he's going to play with the OHL this year, the Flint Firebirds. He actually just demoed one coming from his CCM, and he loved it. He loved the mobility, the way the arms felt, how it wrapped. The protection was great. He absolutely loved it. So we're really excited to kind of get that out there and start showing that to guys, just because that's one thing we've been known for. I mean, Mike started in a garage in Pontiac building chest protectors. That's where Vaughn hockey started, right? So the V9, we're really, really excited, and we're going to have it for another year. So we're going to be continued to help push that and show that off to guys that are looking for something with a little bit more flex, a little bit more rotation. Now, I always love new. Graisen, I know you always love new.
Yeah.
I'm sure you love the new phones. I'm sure you love new everything, right?
Is going to be the top notch of whatever I'm using, and then something new comes out. I'm like, all right, we're using the new stuff.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, it's tough, but if you are somebody that wants something a little bit more stiff, somebody, that wants that rebound to have a little bit more pop coming off the pad, you want it to look a little bit bigger, bulkier. I mean, the SLR is still going to be a great lineup. So, you also mentioned looking into the pandemic and the shutdown and how crazy that was. I mean, in Texas, you guys have had it pretty weird, huh? You guys
Yeah,
opened up a
yeah,
little
we've had like
earlier? Or?
blend of it was bad and a lot of stuff happened, and then it was still bad and everything just opened back up. So we're in kind of a weird limbo of like people are probably doing too much stuff, but that's just kind of how we're going to live, I guess.
Hey, man, you guys are in the Wild West. Anything goes. It's
Yeah.
Texas, baby.
Uh-huh.
Wild West. I One
Young
question
and
did come up.
restless.
Yeah, one question did come up that speaking on new things, I was thinking about this. I forget what it was about, but it's like how far can you? It was about ice cream. Literally, when I was driving, so we got ice cream yesterday, and I was thinking like, how far can you like take ice cream from like a development standpoint? How far can you take that? So it's. I found that kind of the same situation as like goaltending. Like, how new can you get, and how much can you improve something before you hit this cap? That like I feel like a few years ago we thought we hit that cap, and then Vaughn came up with brand new stuff, and then looking at some other companies, they like put out completely new pads. You're like, this is something I would never even think of. So it's like, how far do you think you can take that with goaltending from a development standpoint? Where do you even think like the cap might be?
That's a great question, and it's kind of a two-parter. One, I think you're starting to see, like, currently today, you have to dial in on simple things. It's not, are we going to rebuild the pad? Are we rebuilding the wheel? Pads are great as they are. They
Yeah.
function, the way they're built, they're covering, they're sealing. I mean, we just had Kevin Weeks on between two posts, and he brought up something that was classic. And for older goalies, you'll remember this was like the original V1, V2 pad. That was the first boxier pad that helped you butterfly and seal the ice, right? So
Mhm.
that took us into where we're at today. Now everybody butterflies. I mean, occasionally you get people, well, I play a little bit of a hybrid. I'm more of a stand-up guy. Now, if you're like 45 and up and you're telling me you're a stand-up guy, highly believable. But if you're 35 or younger, I mean, maybe the hips are gone, the knees are shot at 35. So let's go. I'm 27, so let's go 30. We'll go 30 and under. 30 and under, guys. If you're telling me you play stand-up, it's highly unlikely because you've been taught how to do both. You mix in butterfly and then you mix up stand-up saves, and everyone's doing a little bit of both. No one should always just be on the ice. With that being said, every pad's built to butterfly now. So getting back to my point, with everything and the pad being so good across many brands, especially ours, of course, Vaughn, little plug, you have to dial in on small things. You're dialing in on strapping. You're dialing in on the core. You're dialing in on the weight, or you're dialing in on graphics. You've seen some people go a different route where they just want to focus on graphics, not necessarily how the product is built, materials, but like, what can we do to change the face here? But with that being said, those things all have their cycle where I think everyone was so blown away with, oh, we can do this, this, and the other thing. Now I see pads coming out and there's no spark. There's no, like,
Yeah.
where was the whole, you can do anything you want here? Now everyone's just doing stock stuff. And it's just like, well, what's the point now? But with that being said, I think in terms of developing pads and where we see things going, as of right now in today's day and age, it's going to be focusing on small things like the bungee toe tie. I mean, that came out, like 4 or 5 years ago, but it's always being perfected, right?
Yeah.
So
I
with
feel
that
like we
being,
really first saw the elastic trends coming in like 4 years ago, like you said.
yeah,
Like with most pads around like I guess like a P4 era and then like the V4,
mm-hmm,
like around that sort of area where it was like leather straps were still the predominant thing, but you had a elastic strap like on
yep,
the inner calf.
yep,
But now you're seeing pads that are completely all elastic straps and then like a
mm-hmm,
bungee toe. And like
yep,
most people don't even use a like a leather bootstrap now. I
yep,
still do, but I know for Vaughn's that has like the elastic strap in the middle, which is like game changing. You can set up everything so much different
mm-hmm,
that I feel like that's like the perfect middle between for someone like me who wants still like that leather connection at the back of the skate, but still wants the flexibility of like not really having anything there.
Yeah, where you don't feel like you're ratcheted down with a leather guard kind of thing.
Yeah, and the SLR2s was the first thing I ever used like a bungee toe on. I'd never really I was never really interested in it. I liked a pretty tight toe, and like maybe that wasn't really good for me for like hips and knees. But then when I put it on and I used the clip, and I was like, I don't notice a difference in a negative way. I can do everything I need to do, and I'm not restricted in any way, shape, or form. So I took that as a good thing.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And then I think when you want to talk about where pads are going, I think there needs to be a big goaltending change in terms of style, the way we make saves, the way we play. And the NHL always kind of dictates that, because obviously once guys start seeing it in the NHL, guys and girls, all goalies, weekend warriors, when you start seeing it in the NHL, goalie coaches, all around the world start trying to grab and figure out, okay, well, why do you do that? How are they teaching it? Blah, 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 blah. Now, you look at like the reverse. The reverse is still a big controversy, and I don't want to get into that, because whether you're standing up on the post and someone's taking a bad angle shot and they send it off the inside of your calf on, in a stand-up position, or you're in the reverse and they're going top, cheese, it's like either way we look bad. So either stance, you're exposed. But reverse VH is obviously big in today's game, so you need a lot more seal against that post. So when you look at like the way the V9 chest protector wraps, we offered more rib protection because more guys are getting caught leaning, and players are starting to fire pucks in. They're still firing pucks in. Even on a dead spot, you think you have full seal, your mask is tilted, or if you're tall, your shoulders fill in that top corner gap, whatever. If there's nothing to shoot at, they're still going to try and fire it and squeeze it through. So we wanted to offer more protection in that sense.
So you mentioned like the spark and like goalie pads not really having this, big thing that's really pulling people in. Kind of looking back at the V9 and the pandemic and just everything that's happened over the past couple months, like from a retail side, how much harder is it to market the new things and like the new technology and the spark aspect when people can't go in store and try it on and check it out? Like how much more pressure does that add to the marketing side of telling that story without having the pad in someone's hand?
I mean, it's you bring up, when you think about it from that aspect, and you guys working at Monkey, you obviously understand a couple different things. Marketing, one, does become huge. Videos, content, anything you can do to show off that product, show off your any little sales feature on the pad that's been designed, you need to illustrate that and get that in front of people. But two, now you start talking economically speaking, like it's really hard to just throw people, throw gear on the site and throw it in front of people when you think, man, like, times are tough. Like a lot of people are relying on stimulus checks. A lot of people are relying on that extra unemployment. So you got to think, like I've had a lot of people contact me and say, hey, Everett, like I don't want to bother you, but I had some questions about possibly getting a set. The only issue is going to be, I don't need a set unless we play hockey. Like I need to save money. But if we play hockey, like I'd love to get new gear. And I'm like, dude, I totally get it. Whatever you need, whatever questions need to get answered, I'll let you know. You don't have to pull the trigger today, because we're all in like, these are unprecedented times. That's what I keep telling people. Everybody's going through this, but we're on different spectrums of how serious it is, where some people financially might be more affected, or some people's families might be more affected. So we all have to be sensitive to that kind of stuff. But with that being said, how do we do it? For me, I think the coolest thing is on social media, when you put up a cool graphic rather than any specs, any like features, quick slide, this, that, or the other thing, if it looks sick and you put it on Instagram, it's going to get more likes than anything else. Like, did you guys see the SLR2 stick promo? We haven't had a video like that blow up in a long time. Over like, I haven't checked it in a while, but when I saw it got over 12,000 views, I'm like, oh my God, this thing blew up. But I think it's just funny because it's like, an SLR2 composite stick, obviously sick. Like that's our first composite in a long time, and we're really, really excited about it. We've got some really good reviews from college and pro guys using it. But to put it in the sand on a beautiful beach, I'm like, you're never going to see anything like that before. So that's where you kind of catch the eye, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it's interesting from like a standpoint that everyone's kind of like an addict right now for hockey, where it's like we're not getting enough hockey, like we're not playing enough. We weren't watching it for a long time. So when you're sitting at home, like you're looking through your phone, you're seeing all this hockey stuff, you're seeing old videos from years ago that like all these NHL teams were posting. It's like you're like, wow, I really want to play hockey. And so that's when people go to someone like you and they're like, hey, I want to like plan out this gear. So when we are back playing hockey, like I can get this. Like, I feel like I've seen that effect with a lot of people where they're like way more interested in hockey right now. And now that it's rolling back, everyone's like executing on getting back into it.
Yeah, and that's the very, very exciting part. Obviously for you guys too, when you can open the stores. I mean, you guys were earlier than everybody else, but like you talk about states out east and up here in the Midwest, now that stores are opening, people are in there, people are checking stuff out. Michigan just got the green light. I mean, it's totally weird how it's going to go down, like 2 parents per player. You got to wear masks on and off the ice, which I'm not. It'll be interesting how that goes. I'm all, whatever it takes to get games going again, because that's the biggest thing. Like everyone's been practicing. I've been doing goalie coaching. But it sounds like games are actually going to be able to be played now that everyone's back in stores. Everyone's hyped for hockey. Everyone's getting stuff, getting new sticks, getting new gear, getting their skates done up, getting all like the little kids are pad wrapping pads. I think it's a really exciting time. But I think as you move forward, you just got to kind of be cautious, like obey the rules, like nobody ever wants to be told what to do. But if this is what it's going to take to play hockey in Michigan and you got to wear a mask when you're playing goalie, like so be it, right? When you go to the rink, just don't touch stuff. Don't lick the doors. Don't lick your hands after you touch the doors, and everything will be okay. Be cautious of where you're at with people around you. You know what I mean? Wear a mask. Be safe. Don't sit right on top of everybody. Don't breathe in someone's face. Just if you can follow the rules and we can continue to play hockey, it's great. Because I think, like you said, you hit it on the head. Everyone was starving for hockey content. Everyone was starving to watch games, to see anything that was hockey related. So you saw YouTubers, podcasts, everything was popping up, and people were blown up because it's like, well, I guess this is the only way I can get my fix. I mean, guys like you and me, Graisen, we're just addicted. I need my fix of hockey, right? Right.
So
we've been really having to stop Graisen from licking door handles the past 7 months.
It's a
process.
Have you guys designed like a stopper yet?
Well, it's anytime we see it, we're like training him like a dog. It's like a shot collar kind of situation.
Do you have a spray bottle?
It's a legitimate shot collar. He's wearing it under his hood right now.
Oh, good. That's good.
So you mentioned podcasts were popping up.
That's what I was going to jump into as well.
And right after we had you on, not but a few weeks later, your podcast was born. So touch on that. What is Between Two Posts?
Well, first of all, you're welcome for the awesome inspiration to do a goalie podcast.
Yeah, I know.
We're happy to provide that for you. And yes, please jump and listen Between Two Posts.
I was waiting for the attack there. But thank you guys so much. You know what? At the end of the day, I said what Graisen and Jason are doing, like this is the blueprint. This is who is Joe Rogan? You know what I mean? Who's Joe Rogan? No, it's Jason and Graisen. Graisen's just like, hey Jason, look that up. Hey Jason, the V9 pad, look that up for me.
Yeah. A buddy of mine.
This is the outer roll is the blueprint. But we had actually been talking about it because somebody that at Vaughn, my boss Scott, his wife was she occasionally listens to the Joe Rogan podcast. And I was kind of in and out of podcasts. I'm ashamed to admit, Graisen, before you were there, I visited Dallas, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago. I did a Null South trip. I was listening to like Spittin' Chicklets. I was listening to Caller Daddy, which is very shameful to admit. And I just wanted to see what it was all about. Jason, stop laughing. I mean, okay, look, it was interesting. It was it was what was hot at the time, as Paris Hilton would say.
It was topical.
Yeah. And it was just, that was pop culture. But after like 5-10 episodes, man, like they ran out of content and it was just the same stuff. And it was just like, okay, the wheels are off the wagon now. But that got me thinking more about podcasts. I'm like, this is how people grab entertainment. If you like to listen, if you want to, like when you're on car rides or you want to get information. And there's more podcasts for smarter people that are more intelligent than I. Like NPR has a bunch of great ones. There's finance podcasts. There's the horror stuff. Like girls love listening to like the murder stories, which I'll never understand because Jesus, that's terrifying to me that you want to listen to that. But people love listening to murder stories. And we thought, what's one way we can bring content to goalies through an avenue that isn't like, I've seen some people do it where it's very, very, it's a shirt and collar, button down, put a tie on. Everything's really tight. It's compressed. It's very, very professional, I guess is the word. Uniform, I don't know. But like I said, I went to Michigan State, not a bright guy. But with that being said, it's very buttoned down. Where like that's Vaughn brand that's not us. We're a mom and pop shop. We're very relaxed. We're very casual. Those are all the relationships we have with not only the goalies we deal with, but our stores. Like me and Graisen, it's like when we text each other, we make fun of each other probably more than we actually talk about serious stuff, right?
That's well true.
I mean, but also with that being said, those are hockey relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's how you treat guys on your team and your teammates, your players, everybody, the staff you deal with. It's all about having fun and being casual. So that's the route we wanted to go with, and then getting the other side of goaltending, not asking, hey, what do you do before pregame? Like, what do you eat? What do you do with your eyeballs? What are you staring at? Like, how do you tape your stick? It's more like, oh, dude, like, what did you do this summer? What do you get into? Like, what was fun? We saw we had a great episode with John Muse he's with like the Kunlun team over there in China. He got stuck in Bali for like 3 months during quarantine because he couldn't get back. Like how incredible of a trip was that? Like the stories he told were hilarious, where like in China, he was visiting so many different places. When he walked in, he was the only white person that they had ever seen. One of maybe very few, like a handful of white people in a village that was far off like the beaten path, right? So the post he has is like to stand there and you just see all these people with like Nokia, like, $5,000-$10,000 lenses on them, like snapping pictures of you. Like what is going on? I'm not National Geographic. I'm not like a sea ray in the sea. I'm not like a monkey eating like bananas up in a tree in the middle of the jungle. I'm just like, I'm a person. So I couldn't even imagine what that was like. And then most recently, one of our other popular episodes was Weeksy. I think a lot of people know Kevin Weeks today as like the NHL announcer, the face of the NHL network, talking about goaltending and all that kind of different stuff and having the insight. But like the stories he told from his come up are incredible because he remembers everybody. He remembers everything. He remembers every rink he was at, every staff member he ever talked to, coach, GM. The stories he told on that episode were incredible because he has such charisma, but he remembers every detail. Like you could ask him, all right, so like your second pod hockey game in the December of 1990, who was all there? And he would name all players. He'd be like, oh yeah, we were playing with Lenny Metropolit, Joey Smitty, Snipey, like all those hockey names. Snipey, Rocket, like all those guys were there, and he'll always remember everybody, and he tells every story in such detail. But the main point is we wanted to show personality. Like Cal Peterson, what was he doing during quarantine? He was building Lego sets. Like I think he built like an F1, what do you call those, Formula One cars? Like, how cool is that? We found out that a lot of people don't like In-N-Out because it is trash, as you guys know, throughout the dub.
Correct.
What a burger dub, baby. Here we go. Graisen, step out.
Go ahead.
It's fine. Ev, we can continue without him.
You're a Texas guy, aren't you, Graisen?
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm an Arizona kid.
Yeah, but In-N-Out, Arizona.
Arizona's California, and I went there several times a year.
You hear this guy?
This is.
I mean,
Jason,
I'm just
you got to
saying,
change your staff around. Like
there was In-N-Out
trust
in
me,
Arizona way before Texas.
That's funny that you kind of mentioned like the human element, because that's, we came from it at the same angle, right? A couple of years ago, I mean, really when I started about 2 years ago, it was like podcasts were just starting to get really hot, right? And kind of the ones you talked about, like Chicklets was just kind of starting, Pardon My Take, like some of the really big, like Barstool was obviously kind of kicking it off, and then NPR and everything else, like you said. And so it's like, yeah, we got to get into this, but we have to have a way that we kind of tell our own voice. And like the way that it grew from there was, we haven't really wanted to get like the Ben Bishops and these really big guys that they're going to get these kind of canned sports interviews of like, I mean, you've seen a sports interview. It's always the same, right? So we try to take it from the angle of like, you get someone that can tell a story, you make it humanizing, and you make it like fun and exciting. And we kind of built out a roster of people who we want on based on that. So kind of going,
and I'm on here, baby. Here we go.
Up even. But kind of with that mindset, like, do you kind of plan out ahead and think like, oh man, Kevin Weeks is going to have these awesome stories, we have to get him on? Or is it more like, you kind of look at the stable of Vaughn athletes, or you look at people that you've worked with and build it out that way? Like kind of how do you
talent manage in that aspect?
I mean, it's anybody that's willing to talk. Originally, obviously, like Matt Murray's he's a beauty. Guy's very, very calm, unreal athlete, goaltending, like expert, obviously, 2 cups. But obviously, we asked him about the cup runs. That's very, very exciting. And I think the average fan is going to want to know about those. But, like, what is Matt Murray down to the core? Like, he snuck away a year ago and had a secret wedding. He had been dating his girlfriend since he played in the Sioux, like before he played for the Sioux Greyhounds. So they've been together for a long time. They had a secret wedding at his house up on the lake, and it was just beautiful, well done. Like, what's Matt Murray like? He ended up buying a basketball net during the pandemic because he wanted to stay entertained and like do something athletic. And we asked him like, "Oh, can you dunk?" He's like, "No, not really." It's like, "Okay, Matt, well, you got no hops, but like your left to right on a 2-on-1 is disgusting. So I guess it breaks even." We'll interview anybody. We're finding though, guys, it's obviously like guys that are done playing, they have a different view on things. They can come from a different angle. They don't have to be really as buttoned up because, you know, they don't have to worry about what they're saying about a story here or there. We found guys that played in the Vietnam, the dirty Null South, as you guys may know, down there in Texas and the southern region. Like, kids that have stories from that are incredible because everyone can relate to it because everyone's playing junior hockey. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about just a tip is somebody that's played where more people, like the pool is bigger, they can relate to so many more guys. And it's not only just NA, tier 2 or tier 1 or the O. It's, you know, you have people playing in the EHL. You have people playing USP. So everyone's going through those junior hockey stories. They're going through those memories and they're remembering, oh yeah, I remember when our bus broke down, or remember when they gave us those dirty whoppers after the game after we got just, you know, shellacked like 10-1. You remember that stuff, and then it helps connect everybody with that, with those stories. But it's always cool hearing about Kevin Weeks, you know, just playing street hockey in the back alley in Toronto, and then eventually making his way into the show and having a great career, and then turning on to the NHL Network. So you have a lot of different aspects. We don't target anyone specifically, but we are finding who can come up with more stories and have more things to say, or guys that aren't playing still or might be playing at a different level to say. But as we move forward, we also want to expand outside of goalies. We're looking to get into goalie coaches, people that we've dealt with at certain stores, people that we just kind of want to give, like you mentioned it, a podcast gives you a voice. We want to give a voice to others that might need to reach out. So
yeah, that's one thing I found that was like important to me when we were making this, was to not only give athletes a voice, but also brands a voice as like a retail company.
Yep.
So like, I feel like you're the best of both worlds in this situation, because we had our first interview and it was like very like Vaughn focused, all
tech specific.
Yeah. And it was like all V9. We've done the same thing with Warrior, and that's like, I love doing that one. And so it's like you can talk about how like something was developed and give someone the inside scoop to feel more personal with the company. But then also you have the personality to go with it, where it's like you can throw off like some ridiculous jokes and you can just talk about how you're living all the time. So I feel like you're kind of the best of both worlds, and that's why we're having you on twice right now, is because you're just a joy to talk to. And so like you doing a podcast, I think is fantastic. And if no one's checked out Between Two Posts just yet, then go ahead. Like Ev's the guy, like he's got everything.
You give me way too high of praise, Graisen. I have a big head that doesn't fit many masks, but after today, it probably won't fit mine after this. So I do appreciate the kind words, but I think we were talking about this before, and it's from a sales side, whether you're working in hockey, you're working in, you're selling medical gowns, or, selling, outdoor toilets, or like, I can't think of, what do you call that? A porta potty. If you're selling porta potties, if you're selling hand sanitizer, like, if you're selling anything, people want to deal with, and this doesn't, you don't even have to be selling. It could be just working at a job or being on a team. People want to be and work with people that have personality. They have some jam to them, substance. They're not just like the arrogant person that wants to be the high and mighty, or the person that just doesn't say anything. You got to have a little bit of both. You got to find a happy medium. You know what I mean? I probably have a little bit too much one way because I talk too much and I get too loud, but you know what? It's, that's the Italian in me. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Because I'm a Bommarito. Get it? You get that? You guys get that joke?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's just having fun and telling stories, right?
Yeah, I feel like the perfect example of like two ads that I've seen is like who I'm more likely to buy from is like who's that one guy like Dr. Squatch who
No
have
clue
you
what
ever
you're
seen
talking
that
about.
guy? He was like it's like the hair and beard stuff. You ever seen those commercials?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but you know who
You guys
making this
haven't
up.
seen that?
No.
It's like it's just like this long hair like lumberjack looking dude and they like sell soap. And like that's all it is. I forget what it's called, but like they sell soap. But I'm like way more I'm likely to buy that because they have like an engaging ad that's funny and it's like very straight up. It's like made by dudes for dudes, like kind of like stuff like that, rather than the fitness dude. He's like, I know you're sitting here fat and you don't. You're sitting here watching YouTube. You should buy my program. Like I'm way more likely to like listen to someone who's like being funny and like straight up than someone who's trying to sell like a program in like a very like scientific way.
exactly, because you want to connect with something that's, more friendly and like, oh, I can relate to these guys, such as a small chipmunk named Buc-ee. Like I'm much more likely to stop at a Buc-ee's to get my food, gas, a t-shirt, my
I literally
40-ounce soda, my candy, my outdoor fixtures, maybe a barbecue, and then get my gas as well, all from Buc-ee. Yes, everybody, listeners, it all happens at one store. You go to Buc-ee's, and you get it there. So I just had to give them a plug.
Follow-up question. You go to
God.
Buc-ee's, you're walking in, you're picking your items. What are your top 5 items you get? You can get 5
brisket.
items from Buc-ee's. What are you getting? 100%. Sliced
okay.
or chopped?
Sliced.
Respected.
No, yeah,
That didn't,
yep,
that
makes
didn't have a
sense.
good response. Okay. Well, now I feel bad about that.
I'm
think
from
last
Kansas
time-
City, so my Texas barbecue opinion is
I
was
like
correct,
the, I like
but
the
I'm not a
chopped
Texas
brisket
barbecue guy.
sandwich.
You can't tell me Kansas City does better barbecue than Buc-ee's, so you can Jason, log out for me. Take a back seat.
Thank you guys.
Doors to the back left. But anyways, I'm gonna go there, get a brisket. I want the what do you call it? The toasted cinnamon almonds, delicious.
Oh, fantastic.
Another
go-to.
T-shirt. I think I
Another
had
T-shirt.
I had mac and cheese there, and then
Gas.
no, I can't drink gas. Sorry about that.
Well, not for personal consumption.
Okay,
But we're
Well,
giving
maybe
you gas for mac and cheese.
If
Actually,
you think Texas barbecue is better than Kansas City barbecue, you might as well be drinking gas.
okay, Jason. You know what, guys? I just remembered I got this other thing I got to go do. And then lastly,
Yeah. Oh man, we haven't been recording the whole time. Dang.
perfect. I'm glad we wasted everybody's time. What was it? Oh,
we gotta have someone
and then
else. Sorry.
a Nutrageous candy bar. That's one of the best Reese's products ever. You can't tell me it's better. Reese's Cup is better. The Nutrageous candy bar is the best. Peanut butter, caramel, nougat, chocolate, and whole peanuts. Oh my goodness. That's why I'm overweight.
2 things I think you should get on your next Buc-ee's trip. One,
diet?
apple pie. Yeah. That's after. That you feel bad.
Oh no,
No,
I did have the
they have,
apple
like,
pie.
these
I
apple
remember the
pies.
apple pie. You're right. That is delicious. Sorry. Put that
They're
back on the list. Dish
They're-
the T-shirt. I'll get the T-shirt another time.
And then also the O'Toole go-to is it's like a sausage on a stick that has a tortilla wrapped around it.
I saw that.
It's fantastic.
Oh man, nothing better than a
So-
sausage tortilla on a stick. When I go to Texas, that's what I'm thinking.
So we could talk forever about Buc-ee's, but we're getting a little long in the tooth. So I do have one final question for you about Between Two Posts.
Hit me.
So when you're interviewing guests and you're kind of setting everything up, and as you sort of get to the end, I mean, how much responsibility do you personally feel to grease the wheels and get some of your guests over to the outer role? Because I mean, as kind of the godfathers of your podcast, we feel that you need to be kind of doing the grunt work to get our podcast to continue to grow. So how much do you feel that personally?
So after every podcast, I don't actually say it when recording, but when we finish up, I say, hey guys, you need to check out the people that really gave me my start. they're the ones that gave me my beginning in this industry and this business of podcasting. They taught me how to be better than anything Barstool and, anything they've ever put out.
Correct.
And I say, you got to check out the outer roll. And then they go check it out and they say, wow, man, you're like the ECHL, you're the Every Cent Helps. And they're like the NHL. They're the national. And I'm like,
so that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. And I say, okay, well, that hurt a lot, so I'm just gonna sit on that for a little bit. But no, I'm glad you checked out their podcast. So that's kind of how that goes typically. And then I have to go and see a therapist for a little bit. But you know what? You got to dig deep, bear down, show some jam.
Sometimes you got to throw the pucks in the corners and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, you got to get in there and muck it up, right? Like go into the corner with a smile on your face. Those are your utility guys, Swiss Army knife.
We must be a little behind on the residual checks, but we'll keep an eye on the mail. Don't worry about that one.
I checked the DMs the other day.
Probably just a post office problem.
It was just hate, nothing else.
Yeah, it's USPS, the whole political thing. I mean, you guys are in Texas, so I don't know. I don't know where your state stands on the USPS. So, well, maybe I'll try FedEx. FedEx, Federal Express.
All right, we'll try that. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
All right,
I wanted to go into. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to end this. We've gone for like a half hour now.
No, I got some closing statements for Ev himself.
Right. Fire it up.
So, I wanted to go into your personal endeavors, Ev Devers. I don't know.
Man, you spent a lot of time on that one.
Yeah,
he texted me at midnight last night and said, "Guess what I just thought of?"
It's actually page 35. So you had two different accounts where you reviewed and you traveled. I don't know if the traveling one was actually an account, but I know the reviews was an account. So I wanted to speak on what's the best thing you ever reviewed.
Did you call them reviews? With the EV capitalized?
Reviews.
Please tell me you did.
Oh, no, I missed out on that, but I see why you're the idea guy, Jason. So the best thing I had ever reviewed, I'm going to say this now because that was maybe 2-3 years ago, was I being an adopted Korean man from Korea, from Seoul, getting sent into America, into the Midwest, playing hockey, having an Italian family. Facial hair is something that I struggle with because you can't grow it, but everyone has a beard or a mustache, very cool, right? So ever since college, you start doing no shaves in November and it looks horrible. It looks awful and it's embarrassing. You know what? You show up, it's like going to the rink and putting up a performance where, you're letting up 5 on 10. It's like, why did this guy come? Let's get a new goalie. This guy's embarrassing. That's what it felt like to me. And you could see it, you could feel the ridicule in the locker room to the point where you don't shower and you just get out and you go home as soon as possible. That's what it felt like. But now I have a mustache. Quarantine allowed me to grow this beautiful thing out, and I'm very embracing it. It's very full. Look at that. So back then, when I did ever reviews, it was when I smiled, you could see through it, and you could just see my face, and it was just so embarrassing. So that's probably my favorite thing I've ever because it gives me nostalgia. This is where I was, and this is where I'm at today. I've come a long way. I've developed. I've as a person, just grown.
Yeah,
Wait, so the answer is a mustache?
Yes.
Is the best thing you've ever reviewed is your own personal mustache?
Jason, you're from Kansas City. I don't want to hear it. You get one Super Bowl. You just don't shut up. Jesus. Shut up.
I will take my full beard and leave.
This guy can grow a killer muzzy. I'm just going to throw that out there. We have pictures to prove it.
Yeah, but he's from Kansas City, so it doesn't.
We'll get an Ev review of it going.
So, upon my research, you actually rated your own mustache a 2 out of 10.
Care to comment?
It was bad. That one was bad. I mean, it was 3 years ago. I couldn't grow anything, but I grew it out just to see what was going to happen.
You're updating your review to your current mustache and just gassing yourself on our podcast.
Yeah. So say today, I was to review this, I'd give myself I give it a 7.5 out of 10 because I don't have any curl yet. I want to get some curl coming off the sides, and that's when I think it'll be upgraded to a 9. So today, 2020, 7.5 mustache. 3 or 4 years ago. It was like a 2 out of 10. It was embarrassing. People looked at you. They're like, dude, what are you doing? Are you blind? Did you lose a bet? What are you bad at hockey? And I was like, yes, I'm all of those things. So
How would you view this episode of The Outer Roll?
I've had a lot of fun here. So, you know what?
He's a hard grader.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the pizza reviews and where that grading scale is, if you
And you're
multiply it by
saying
3 for the conversion to hockey, you add Graisen in, you take out Jason's beard and his arrogance from being from Kansas City, it probably puts us at like
Okay,
a 9.2. 9.2.
Ooh, I'll take it.
that was
If only I was from like Indianapolis or something,
that
I
was
would
a
be like
huge
11.1.
knock for Jason Spear. That I don't know how we still got to 9.2.
I mean, that it shaved off like a whole half a point. So like now we're saying 9.7.
Yeah.
Lose the shirt, Jason.
Yeah,
Wear
but
something
the
better.
grading scale added. So.
So
It's
yeah,
game day, baby. Come on. All right. Well,
No.
we've been all over the place in the outer roll, as was probably expected round 2 with you, Ev. But as we mentioned to everyone out there that's listening, thanks for sticking through this nonsensicals we've gone through. But check out Between Two Posts, Vaughn Custom Sports, signature podcast, godfathered by the outer roll at MonkeySports. Ev Bommarito, as always, man, thanks so much. We'll see if we bring you back for part 3 here in the next couple months.
yeah. If I don't
Next
get
month.
brought back, I know I've really dropped on that talent roster. So Jason, thank you. Raisin, thank you. I appreciate the time. It was a lot of fun.
Of course.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you later.
Always a treat.
Thank you again to our first ever recurring guest on the outer roll, Ev Bommarito from Vaughn Custom Sports. As we mentioned, if you want to check out the entire interview, head over to our YouTube page. Search GoalieMonkey on YouTube. Be able to check out the visual component of that as well through our Zoom call. If you want to check out Ev's podcast, Between Two Posts, available everywhere now.
Yep. Yeah, you can get it on Spotify. He posts it always on the Vaughn channel. He has links everywhere. So we're going to leave that in our descriptions, and we're going to link it as much as we can in various places. So if you need to find his, you can find it on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. You can find it really anywhere. It's a fantastic podcast. Go check it out.
Yeah, as we mentioned, we're the godfathers of that podcast, so we'll push that as much as we can. We'll be back for another episode of The Outer Roll in a month's time. As we mentioned, we're going to try to grease the wheels on a few more guests to get you guys as much content as possible. If you stay subscribed to the Monkey Sports Podcast, we'll be back next week with Monkey Ball, the Baseball Monkey Podcast. So be sure to check that out. Get any of your baseball playing friends over to the Monkey Sports Podcast to check it out. As always, thank you so much for staying subscribed. Thank you for supporting the Outer Roll and the Monkey Sports Podcast. We will see you next time.